I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Good afternoon and welcome to Camnet TV Mid News. The headlines. MULUNGUSHI University students ask President HH to finance their education using his salary. BOWMAN LUSAMBO demands a refund from ZAMTEL for renovating its house. Join me with the details after this commercial.
Istana ya Afrika ya kubende chalo akamwana kanono nomsepela kuikala chapamo kuribe kumunzi kuribe mutauni kumatero aliyenze afunika kupende.
The Zambia Statistics Agency will this year conduct the 2021 census across the country. The census aims to count people in households, rural and urban, hospitals, military, police and correctional facilities. This numbering will extend to hotels, farms, as well as high-density areas with different families sharing a house and those in transitory locations. Every person in the country matters and should be counted because the census will benefit all, from migrants, refugees and street children, homeless people, the young and the old people, as well as persons with disabilities. Everyone counts. This message is brought to you by the Zambia Statistics Agency.
And now the media news in detail. Youths in many Zambian communities have continued spending their time on unproductive vices such as beer drinking during daytime as opposed to contributing positively to the country's development, despite them making up over 50% of the country's population. Camnet News caught up with some youths of Lusaka West who by midday were highly intoxicated, alleging that no sensitization meetings are held in their community to warn them on the negative effects of this vice.
Over half of Zambia's population is made up of youths, according to the United Nations Population Fund, meaning that the success and development of the country is highly dependent on this population. Many youths in the country have, however, been engaging in vices such as drug and alcohol abuse, hence lessening their productivity. According to the World Health Organization (WHO), 76% of men, 33% of women, and 43% of people below the age of 18 consume alcohol in excess in Zambia, putting them in danger of various complications, among them colon cancer and liver disease. Camnet News caught up with some youths of Lusaka West who by noon were highly intoxicated with alcohol and not engaging in productive activities. In an interview, the youth said they are ignorant of the negative effects of alcohol, as no community sensitization on this is conducted in their community. They have also expressed ignorance on what the Constituency Development Fund (CDF) is, adding that information on forming cooperatives under this initiative has not reached them.
SDF stizi akapenda sebenza chani kaya.
Yes.
Niwafunishe kupunzirako sitako vija wapunza ko chimwiriri.
Nikwapasa ko ntchito baziva na moyo senzesa meya mkambapo. CDF yes.
As in like vija kungenesa ko bantu machani mu maud vija baenda bapunzisa kwa trist. But sikutitima mwa daily so.
Meanwhile, in a recent interview with Camnet News, Minister of Youth, Sports and Arts Elvis Nkandu says the decentralization of the ministry is underway to ensure that more youths are reached.
But you know, because CDF is decentralized to some extent, that's why there is, I think, the queue for people to get these loans from wherever they are. Now, we haven't yet decentralized, I think, these empowerment programs under the Ministry of Youth. So maybe it could also be a reason why there's a lot of enthusiasm by our young people to get from the CDF.
It remains clear that more sensitization on the negative effects of alcohol, as well as on various empowerment programs in the country, remains to be done as one way of addressing the existing problem. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Some first-year Mulungushi University students who were left out on the Students' Loan and Scholarship Scheme have called on President Hakainde Hichilema to fulfill his campaign promise of providing scholarships to all students. The students who Monday morning protested at the Ministry of Education offices in Lusaka feel the current administration is not living up to its promise and that President Hakainde Hichilema will use his salary to pay for their school fees.
We're here. Help us. We are your children, please. This is the main reason why we voted for you. Please, Mr. President.
The hope of attaining a higher education for these first-year Mulungushi University students is almost shutting after being left out on the student and loan scholarship under the Ministry of Education. According to a statement issued by the ministry, out of 3,551 applicants, 3,445 were deemed eligible, but that only 1,087 were selected, with 700 having been picked from rural areas. The students now want the Republican President Hakainde Hichilema to find a way of helping them attain a higher education in accordance with the promise he made prior to the 2021 general elections.
On Monday we're supposed to be in school. Next week Monday we're supposed to be in school. And if we are late, we are going to pay another fees, which is going to make us, where are we going to find the loans? Please consider us, Mr. President. We also appeal to the Vice President. Please do something for the loans. We cry to you, President, please. May you consider us. We are crying to you, please.
I believe the President understands us because he was also sponsored through a bursary. So we are appealing to him to please help us out in this. He also mentioned something like selling the presidential jet to sponsoring the students. We know, yes, we know the ZAF says you cannot sell the presidential jet, but at least the president has gone months without being paid his salary and allowances. So we are appealing, if at all the government does not have funds, let the president use his allowances and salary on us, the students.
We also plead for others who are far. They can't even afford to come here for the transport, but at least we've tried our best to come here.
Others have also bemoaned the criteria used in allocating bursaries, where 700 out of 1,087 were from rural areas, with only 300 being selected from urban areas. The students feel the move will disadvantage those coming from compounds such as Misisi, Chibolia, John Leng, among others.
When you talk of Mrs. Karikiriki, those places there, you can't consider people there to be in urban area or being rich. They are not able to support themselves at the university. That's the reason why we are applied for the loans. We are not able to support ourselves. So our appeal to the government of His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema, we are appealing as they are amending the CDF guidelines at Parliament. They should include higher institutions at university level so that students at universities can be getting sponsorship from the CDFs to the CDF funds.
Meanwhile, the students have accused the Ministry of Education Permanent Secretary for Technical Services, Joe Kamoko, of labeling them cadres when they tried to engage him over the matter.
Permanent Secretary for Technical Services here at the Ministry of Education, when we approached him, he mentioned to say, why are we bringing in PF manners here at the Ministry of Education? But our point of view is for us to be helped. He mentioned to say, if at all we waited for 10 years to remove PF in power, we have to also wait to be given student votes. Honestly speaking, we are non-partisan. We do not belong to any political party.
And efforts to get a comment from the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Muneko, by broadcast time proved futile as her phone went unanswered. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Ministry of Information and Media Director spokesperson Thabo Kawana has assured that all those who will be found guilty of illegally allocating land will be dealt with in accordance with the law. Mr. Kawana notes that lawbreakers should not be left top scot-free, while victims are made to suffer twice by losing their money. The director's spokesperson has also hinted the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU is currently in Chingola District, assessing the victims' level of vulnerability and identifying possible places to relocate those who may need temporary places to squat.
The demolition of over 300 houses believed to have been built on the aviation land in Chingola district on the Copper Belt has continued to attract mixed reactions from different stakeholders. The Civic Forum for Housing and Habitat Executive Director Grace Mtonga says our organization is disappointed that while Zambia has over 2.8 million housing deficit, houses are being demolished simply because laws in Zambia are porous and anyone can break them.
Is to see that punitive measures are being taken as reactive measures. What is needed to be done is to look at it from what are the causes of such kinds of illegalities. The political cadres were actually filling in a vacuum that was vacant. So this vacuum that was created by the system, the cadres took advantage of it. They began to allocate illegal land to citizens because the system was weak. Again, it's also the process of one being able to acquire land. And because previously everything was done illegally, then eventually it becomes legal. It became some form of a norm.
Meanwhile, Zambia Land Alliance says inasmuch as it does not support illegalities, it has sent its members on the Copper Belt to assess the authenticity of the land documents that were given to the affected families and says if the local authority will be found wanting, the affected families should be compensated.
We stand with the people of Chingola. Right now, as I speak, our officers are going on the ground to establish the authenticity of the papers that are actually in people's hands. And then if it is established that they were really given legitimate papers, they need to claim compensation for the loss that they've suffered.
And Ministry of Information Director spokesperson Tabo Kawana has explained that the land in question did not belong to the Zambian government but to the International Aviation Authority, and that the government could have been held accountable if it was established that structures were built on illegal land.
International property, because if, for example, you have a plane flying over the DRC, maybe headed to South Africa, and they get into trouble mid-air, they may need to have an emergency landing. And international aviation will show them that there's an airstrip in Chingola that they could safely land and take care of their problems. Now, in the event of an aviation accident, you will find that what will happen on the ground, the kind of casualties we shall record, both from the plane and on the ground, will be immense.
The director spokesperson has since sympathized with the affected families and says government through DMMU is currently in the district to help relocate the families to a suitable place and provide them with temporary shelter.
We must be quick and hasten to state that we do not have laws that allow for compensation in cases such as this. The law does not compensate illegality. But however, on humanitarian grounds, the DMMU will look at the numbers involved and see who needs what help. And that help can be rendered as a mitigating factor as the people cross over to the other side.
Mr. Kawana has since promised that those who will be found wanting in allocating the said land will be dealt with in accordance with the law. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
In other news, former Kabushi constituency member of parliament BOWMAN LUSAMBO has submitted before the Lusaka High Court that contrary to the allegations by ZAMTEL that he has failed to pay rentals for a house in Ndola, Copperbelt province, he is entitled to a refund for renovating it. This is in a case in which ZAMTEL has sued Mr. LUSAMBO in court for being a problematic tenant by failing to pay rentals for a house in Ndola.
He has continued to advance his defense before the Lusaka High Court in a lawsuit that ZAMTEL has sued him demanding payment of 590,000 kwacha as rentals arrears for a house in Ndola. The former Kabushi member of parliament BOWMAN LUSAMBO is claiming for a refund of 2,050,327 kwacha, 18 ngwe, monies he spent in renovating the said house. Has he agreed with ZAMTEL that the cost of renovation would be offset any accrued rental arrears? The former lawmaker, Mr. LUSAMBO, has been accused by ZAMTEL in its lawsuit that Mr. LUSAMBO had become a problematic tenant, and it is for that fact that they did not want him to continue being the tenant in their apartment. Some of the reasons advanced by ZAMTEL was that on the 1st of December 2016, it entered into an agreement with Mr. Lusambo. He will be paying monthly rentals in the sum of 10,000 kwacha inclusive of withholding tax, but on the 29th of January 2018, he requested that the house be sold to him on account that he had invested personal money in renovating it and that his family had become emotionally attached to it. ZAMTEL had also alleged that from the time Mr. Lusambo occupied the house, he had never paid any rent, despite all effort it made to collect rentals from him. However, in his latest submission before court, the former lawmaker says he orally agreed with ZAMTEL through its chief executive officer that he would proceed to renovate the property using his own funds, which would be deductible from his monthly rentals, and that the monies he has spent on rehabilitating the said property amounts to over 2 million kwacha, and that instead of ZAMTEL claiming the said alleged 590,000 kwacha, he also wants a refund. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Well, that news item brings us to the end of Camnet TV Mid news, but before we go, here are the headlines once again. MULUNGUSHI University students ask President HH to finance their education using his salary. BOWMAN LUSAMBO demands a refund from ZAMTEL for renovating its house. Thank you for watching. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Good afternoon.